Okay, well, welcome to another interview from Millionairess magazine and the Millionairess movement. I'm Amanda Jane Clarkson, editor-in-chief, and today I am very much looking forward to interviewing the founder of Rich Woman, Kim Kiyosaki. Kim is an internationally renowned speaker, author, entrepreneur. This goes for a long time. Real estate investor, radio show host, and educator. And Kim has always cultivated her entrepreneur spirit. She started an apparel business in 1989 and has been involved in several businesses since, most notably as co-founder of the Rich Dad Company. Nowadays, Kim has the freedom to do whatever she wants, and you can too, she says. Aside from spending a few weeks in beautiful Hawaii, which is one of our favorite spots in the world, by the way, Kim, we go there every year.
Yes, I know.
Kim has developed the Rich brand, the Rich Woman brand, which includes her books, It's Rising Time, Rich Dad, Rich Woman's, Good Deal, Bad Deal, How Do You Find Real Estate Deals That Make Money, and the Business Week bestseller, Rich Woman. In addition to numerous events, webinars, articles, videos, games, and much more. Along with her team of advisors and successful women, Kim travels around the world teaching and empowering women to be financially independent. You can hear or view Kim's interview via television, the internet, radio, in printed publications globally, and of course in our upcoming issue of Millionairess magazine, where Kim graces the cover. Welcome, Kim. We so appreciate you being with us today and sharing your incredible wisdom.
Oh,
what an introduction.
That was quite an introduction. I think I'm done now. I think I can go.
It's like, I've got down the page.
But I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate the work you're doing to educate women and to empower women, because it's so important, more today than ever, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's just, so in me to want to get out there and share, similar to what you do in a different kind of way. But I think, women, it's time now, as you say, to rise up and take the lead in our own lives. And you will not remember, but I've actually met you before. My husband and I spoke at the National Achievers Congress back in 2011 and shared the stage with I think there was Donald Trump and your husband. What happened was, I have this book here in front of me, which is not your book, but I'll get to the story because I know this means a lot to you and Robert, that in 1999, we read your book, my husband and I, and that set us on the pathway to buying our first home, our first property, and then renovating properties, and then investing in properties further down the track. And we shared that story with Robert, and he called you over to meet us. And so I just want to say a massive thank you. You really did change our whole life.
That's so great. And in times like this, it's like, yeah, a lot of people are going to be okay because we have been prepared. So it's a wonderful thing. Yeah, great. Good job. Great. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. If it hadn't been for yourself and Robert, we wouldn't be probably where we are today. But going back to the beginning, we touched a little bit on your story, but tell us more about your journey and how you got to where you are today. Where did it all begin?
Oh, that's a big question. I'm the youngest of three girls in my family. And I think that actually had quite an impact because being the youngest, mom and dad always, and dad not having a son, kind of took me on under his wing. And they always said, we want you to do whatever you want to do. We want you to go for your dreams. We want you to be happy. We want you to, and one of the earliest things my mom told me, she said, Kim, I was about 9 years old. She said, Kim, if you don't want to spend your life in a kitchen, don't learn how to cook. Oh, okay, Mom. And then she said, and this was before computers, if you don't want to be a secretary, don't learn how to type. And basically what she was saying is, don't put yourself in this box called female and have to be a stereotype role that so many women are. And this goes back many, many, many years. So she kind of laid the groundwork for, and then my father was very, very, very supportive in me doing what it is I wanted to do. So that's where it started. that's where it started. I was born out just outside of New Jersey. I mean, just outside of New York City and New Jersey. And when I was 14, we moved to Oregon, and so we went from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast, discovered there is a world out there. And that's kind of got my love of travel. So when I was 18, I decided that we took a trip to Hawaii for a family vacation. And after 1 week, I decided that the luckiest people in the world lived in Hawaii, and that's where I was going to live.
I agree.
Yep. So I'm 18. I'm like, I'm going to Hawaii. Then mom said, it's okay, but you got to go to school. And so I went to school in Hawaii, started in advertising. Once I graduated, I graduated a business degree, started in advertising, which was actually a really good place to do it because Hawaii is so small that if you have half a brain and a little bit of common sense, you can get a lot of responsibility very quickly. So I learned the world of advertising very, very quickly, not tied to a job, but really tied to the industry.
Yeah.
So that was a great opportunity for me. But then what happened is when I got my first job in an advertising agency, I was there for 9 months. I had a boss. She and I hit heads constantly because, as I said, I wanted to learn the business. She wanted me to learn my job. She just wanted me at my job, and I'm all over looking at, I want to learn production. I want to learn sales. I want to learn the art piece of it. I want to learn all of it. Account services, all of it I wanted to learn. So she couldn't find me a lot of the time. And so after 9 months, she fired me. And I'm like, oh, that was really devastating. And so I had some other jobs in sales, but then the company hired me back. And this time it was only 6 months. And they said, Kim, you're not a fit here. And I'm like, how can that be? I'm not a fit. I'm smart and I can do things and I'm capable. And then I finally realized I really, really had a hard time following rules and following direction. And I knew at that point I wanted my own business.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm gonna get my own business by the time I'm 30, I'm gonna have my own business. And so that was at 26. Then I had my first date with my husband now, Robert. And on the first date, he asked me 2 very important questions. And the first question he said is, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm like, wow, that's a big question. And I said, well, given the way things are going, I haven't been very good as an employee, so I want my own business. And he said, well, I've started several businesses and all of my friends are entrepreneurs. And I'm like, this is where I need to be right now. So it was about 2 months later, I started my first business. As you said, I created a logo, embroidered it on shirts and jackets. Yeah. And every business must have a purpose. Yes. And the purpose of this business was to fund for 1 year, fund my travel, my hotel, my registration fees into business events, business conferences all over the US. And I'd set up my little booth and I'd sell my products, my shirts and my sweaters and my jackets with this logo. And that funded my business education for 1 year. So that's how I started in business. There was a second question Robert asked me on our first date. And first was, what do you want to do with your life? The second was, what's your life's purpose? Mm. And I'm like, and it was probably only about 3 months earlier, I had this aha moment where I woke up one morning in Hawaii and the palm trees were rustling in the wind. It was a beautiful day. The sun was coming through the curtains. And I woke up and I thought, every day I get up, I go to work, I get a paycheck, I pay my bills. Get up, go to work, I get a paycheck, I pay my bills. And I'm like, there's got to be more to life than this. Yeah. And that's when I started searching. That was the search. And so when he said that, I'm like, life's purpose, maybe that's what I'm looking for. Maybe I'm looking for a life's purpose. So that really kind of sealed the deal there. So that's how I started in business. I love business. I love entrepreneurship. I've started several companies. Of course, the most popular today is the Rich Dad Company that Robert and I founded back in 1996. But I love that world, and I love the world of investing.
Yeah, you can tell by the way you speak, it comes from within. We talk about purpose, and I believe everybody is here with a purpose or a calling, or depending on the word you want to use, and we'll get to the mission in a moment. And I think that women have a deep understanding around that topic, sometimes more than the men do. I don't know about your experience, but I certainly understand where you're coming from.
Thanks. Yeah. Right now, when I talk to women, the world is pretty messed up right now, and we've got this whole COVID thing going on as well. But before that, so I think COVID's going to be blamed on a lot of the economic problems, but there was a lot of economic problems well before COVID ever hit.
Yep.
And I think it really is, I do think women have a huge role to play, because the female energy, the female mind, the way it works, how we cooperate versus compete, the women need to step up, and we need to take leadership roles, and we need to get into places so that we can turn things around. And I really think it's up to the women. No longer can we sit back on the sidelines, no more. We need to step up and take a lead and take a role and be a role model for other women, especially young women today.
Oh, look, I love what you just said. And this is the whole purpose behind the Millionairess movement in the magazine is I don't see competition. I see women like yourself and us, we're on a global stage rising together. And we say we elevate self-worth, net worth, and life worth.
Nice.
Time to hand the torch on.
Yes. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's great. And, I think it's really lovely that, you're across the other side of the planet, and yet we can, get on a call like this and chat and just share the message and give other people hope where they probably sometimes just don't feel that there's hope, but there always is.
Well, there is. And, to my story on the investing side of things is that I'm somebody that I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about investing. I didn't know anything about money except, you get a job and you make money. I heard a little bit about a stock market, but I didn't know anything about investing at all. And it was back in 1989, and Robert and I were living in Portland, Oregon, and he started to teach me what his rich dad had taught him about investing, and specifically about real estate. And then he said, okay, go out and find something. I'm like, what? Find something? Yeah, what? So I just, bumbled and stumbled around, and 3 blocks from where we were living was this little tiny 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. And I found it. It was $45,000. I had to come up with $5,000 down payment, which we did not have. I was scared to death. I was so afraid I was going to lose money. I was afraid I was going to make a mistake. I was afraid I was going to be told, I told you so. All of these doubts were going through my head. But what I've learned is you've got to take that next step. And my book, It's Rising Time, I wrote that because I found a lot of women, they got excited about doing this and they wanted to start investing. They wanted to start handling their money, taking charge, but they couldn't take that first step. And that first step is so important. And so at some point, for me, it was either I do this deal or I don't. And I know if I don't do it, I quit. I quit on myself. I quit on myself if I don't do it. Even if I do it and I make a ton of mistakes, which I did, and which I do every day, at least I did it. Because if you take that step and you, as you said earlier, be uncomfortable, sometimes you have to be uncomfortable, that's where growth happens. That's how you grow.
It's so true. And I remember back in 1999 when we actually read the Rich Dad book, and my husband at the time was a carpenter, and he said, wow, maybe we should buy our own first home. Didn't think of that before. And from that next day, he worked 7 days a week to save up $14,000, and literally 6 streets up the block here on where we live here, we bought our first unit, which was 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, not too dissimilar to yourself. And we were very nervous. That was everything we had. And we really stretched ourselves. I think it was about $30,000 more than we could even afford. And I remember saying to my husband, if not now, when? We will find a way. Let's just do it. Make the commitment. The Rich Dad book said it'll work out. Let's just do it. And then you find a way. You just find a way. And then from there.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Amanda, because so often people say, oh, when I have the money, I'll invest. And for me and for Robert, the best thing was I probably did our first 10 deals. We had no money.
Yeah.
But it made us very creative. It made us think, made us figure it out. And so that's the best part. So when you say, you know, you didn't have the money, and yeah, you could have lost all that money too, but it made you smarter in the process. And I think that's key for so many people.
Oh, you know, and this leads into our second question. You know, on this journey of, we call it business and life, things get really uncomfortable. And I know you will agree with that. As soon as it gets uncomfortable, people often quit, as we just agreed. What advice would you give to those who fear making the mistakes and fear of, you know, a failure, especially about what other people will think and say about them?
Yeah, you know, we're so conditioned. I mean, we're so conditioned. We come out of school. Okay, you go to school, and school actually is opposite. What they teach you in school is opposite for what it takes to succeed in life. Number one, they say, don't make mistakes.
Yep.
Well, the only way we learn is by making mistakes. What if there was no mistakes being made in the world? You know, nothing would get done. There'd be no breakthroughs. There'd be no accomplishments. Think about when you first rode a bicycle, you fell off and you made mistakes. When you first drove a car, you're on the gas pedal and you're on the brake and you're turning right and you're doing all these crazy things. Even, you know, I have friends that have wineries, and to get to a beautiful bottle of their Pinot Noir, they made a lot of mistakes, but had they not started, there never would be wine. So in school, they teach you, number one, don't make mistakes. So we come out of school scared to death of making a mistake, which is totally opposite of how we grow and learn. The other thing they say is do it on your own. You have to do it on your own, because if you collaborate with somebody, that's called cheating. So you got to do it by yourself. Don't ask for help. And of course, in the real world, if you're not cooperating and collaborating with other people, you're only going to go so far. And the third thing they say, this is the best one, especially for entrepreneurs. The third thing they say is there's only one right answer. Okay. So I mean, you're just saying, you know, you bought this unit. Okay. There were so many different ways you could have done it. And there's so many different ways you can run it and manage it and grow it and build it. There's no one right answer. So I think people come out of school just petrified and paralyzed of making mistakes. What are people going to think about me? So the key for me is, I don't like when I make a mistake originally, but now I know that a mistake only shows me something I did not know. So I make a mistake, I step back and I go, okay, what is it here I'm supposed to learn? What didn't we know that we now know that we can take forward with us? So mistakes are great. If you're not making mistakes, you are not growing. I will guarantee you, if you're not out there, there's a saying that I have in my book, Rich Woman. I won't say it exactly right, but I think it comes from Emerson. And he said, if you're not facing something you fear every day, you don't understand the secret of life. So you've got to put yourself in uncomfortable positions, because when you break through that, that's where growth happens. That's where the learning happens. And so everybody's talking about being safe and being secure and not making mistakes and not being uncomfortable. Well, then life doesn't have much use for you, to be honest.
Well, the thought of being safe and secure, that's more frightening to me than getting out there in the world. And I love Emerson too. And one of his quotes that I often say is, you know, he says, we are always getting ready to live, but never living. And part of being an entrepreneur is living. It's exciting. There's always opportunities, and there's ups and downs and highs and lows and everything in between. But, you know, I say I'd rather go to the end of my days knowing than die wondering.
Yeah. And yes. And you know, right? You know, every time you don't go for it, you know, when you don't go for it, and everybody knows when they don't. Everybody knows when they back off. Everybody knows when that fear wins. And every time fear wins, you lose every single time. So when you let fear stop you, then there's no growth going to happen. There's not going to be any magic. There's no magic that happens when you're not going for something. And a lot of it is going into the unknown. You know, people are afraid of the unknown. They want everything to be known. They want everything to be in order. They want everything to plan and go according to their plan. But when you push yourself into something you don't know, and you're going into, let's say you're doing a project. One of the things that has worked for me is I've said yes a lot to things. I'm like, I don't know how in the world we're going to do this, but I'm going to say yes to it. And you figure it out.
Yeah.
And what a great feeling when you do figure it out, right? When you
especially
do make
if
that
yep, especially if you're on purpose, which I'm going to get to in a moment. I agree with you, and you just grow in so many ways, and that elevates your self-worth. I mean, people want the money in the bank, they want the net worth, but it doesn't come without elevating your self-worth, which leads to, we're talking about personal empowerment, personal development here. We have a saying, it's an 80-20 rule. 20% tactic and strategy, but 80% is all in here. Would you agree with that, Kim? And what's your take on that?
Oh, I would. Absolutely. Absolutely. Even when we hire people, it's all about not so much just their attitude, but how they look at life.
Yeah.
And as long as they have some skills that are necessary for their job, that's great. But it's more important, do they work well with a team? Where's their ego? Are they probably the most important thing? And then I will say this for any entrepreneur, if you're going to take on a partner, most important thing is, are they truly, really aligned to your mission? Are they really aligned to your purpose? Because we've had partners that say they are, but their behavior doesn't point to that. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking of bringing on a partner, I say number one thing is that partner has got to be aligned 100% to your mission.
We go through the same process. Anyone who comes into our company, we discover what their personal values are, then align their values to the mission of the Millionairess movement, similar to yourself, which goes into my next question. How important is it to believe in your mission or your vision before you see the evidence? Now, when I say evidence, a lot of entrepreneurs go into business to make money because we all want the freedom, right? But if you don't have a vision or a mission or a big reason why, the question is, how important is it to believe in it so much? Because the evidence might not appear for a long time yet.
That's right. Yes. I can just speak from experience. So, as I said earlier, every business must have a purpose, and every business, the purpose of a business, I believe, is to solve a problem. So the problem that we saw was that there was no financial education in school globally. So we took on the task of bringing financial education to the world. That was the mission. And the Rich Dad, the written mission of the Rich Dad Company is to elevate the financial well-being of humanity. Yeah. And I remember back in 1996, when we said that to people, some of them were like, well, you're kind of full of yourselves. How do you think you're going to do that? And, that's pretty gutsy move there. And, like you're full of, what? Yeah. That has always been the mission, always. And we only started the company for the mission. We never started the company for the money. And actually, when we started the Rich Dad Company, Robert and I were financially free. And so all the decisions came, not what was going to put money in our pocket, but what was going to be best for the company. Yeah. And it took some time. We were, Rich Dad, Poor Dad was published. The first product we created actually was the Cashflow board game. Yep. That was the first product. And the purpose for that product was Robert and I did not want to go traveling all over the world telling everybody how we became financially free. They all were asking, how did you do it? You don't have stocks, you don't have a pension, you don't have a 401k, you don't have any of these things. How did you retire? I was 37, Robert was 47. And so we thought, instead of telling everybody how we did it, let's create a fun game that teaches money, teaches investing. And we launched this cash flow game. To your point, Amanda, with no idea how it was going to be marketed, how we were going to, we didn't have this 5-year plan. We just knew we wanted to get this game out. In the process, we actually launched, Australia was one of the earliest countries that we launched the cash flow game in.
I've got it.
Good. And that's the mission we've gone back to, and I'll explain that a little later. But Robert's like, well, we need a brochure for the game. So he started working on this brochure and kept working on it. Next thing you know, here's this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yep. So then the book takes off. And, but it was always, we've never started anything with the purpose being to make money. If the purpose is needed and wanted, what you're producing is needed and wanted, then the money will follow. But money is always what we call the precessional effect. It's the effect of you doing good work.
Yeah.
And yep, I'll give you one other example. Last year, I took back the company. It was going in a not the direction, not the mission of the company. It was off course, was being run by other people. They were doing their best they could, but they never understood truly what the real mission and purpose of the company was. So I was out of the operations for many, many years. So basically let go of a lot of people. I said, we're going to get back to the mission. We're going to get back to the cash flow game. We're going to get back to the books. We're going to get back to the original messaging. And I'll tell you, when you say evidence, holy mackerel, magic started happening like crazy. I mean, one thing after the things that were totally unexpected. And I didn't know how we were going to do this. I just knew it had to be done. I knew we had to get back to the mission because it was not there anymore. I didn't know how we were going to do it. I didn't have a plan. I had a great, great, great small team. And all of a sudden, all this magic is happening. Money's coming in. People are showing up. Resources are showing up. Our partners who were battling each other are now cooperating. I mean, it's amazing. But when you get back to really the heart of the mission, that's what you say, the evidence, then that's when the magic, in my opinion, that's when the magic starts happening.
Yeah. And I when we talk about this, I talk about soulful work, and, when it comes from within, it's a whole different style of business. But, one of the things I share with my women is, people fall in love with their product or service. And I say, turn that or shift that to fall in love with the people that you serve, call it soulful serving. And get your focus off the product. If you want to help people, you want to change people's lives, solve problems, fill voids, the money, if you have the right product and service and you care more about the people than the money will eventually come if you're in the right marketplace. Totally
agree. So one of our mentors, I never met him. He passed away before the year before I met Robert. His name was R. Buckminster Fuller.
Yes.
And Bucky Fuller. So he invented the geodesic dome. They called him the friendly genius. He was a visionary, a philosopher, a futurist. He said something that we've now from day one have incorporated into our business, exactly along what you're saying, Amanda. And he always said, the more people I serve, the more effective I become.
Yep.
So we always focus on how do we serve more people? How do we reach more people? And in the age of technology, it's so easy now to reach people. I mean, when Rich Dad Poor Dad came out, we're trying to figure out how do we get the names and addresses of people who bought our book? Because back then it's a bookstore and you don't have computers and all this stuff, right? So we put send us $5 for postage and handling, and we'll send you this audio tape. And it's an audio tape Robert made on, I forget what the subject was, but that's how we were building our database. Today, you push a button and you reach millions of people all over the world. I mean, it's easier. It's harder because there's so much noise and there's so many people competing for that same space.
Yes.
But on the other hand, it's also so much easier to test things, to reach people, to market, to get information. So it's actually really exciting to see how all of this is progressing.
It is really exciting. I mean, never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that I'd be sitting here having this incredible conversation with you, one of my mentors, and this has made it possible. Even the moment that we're living in right now has got us or taught us to think differently. We don't have to be in America. We don't have to fly around anymore. We've done countless seminars like you have for 15 years running. And I said to myself, how else can we do this? How can we elevate lives and, elevate net worth and life worth? And here we are today having this incredible conversation. And thanks to you, because, this is such an integral part of the message that we're trying to get out there alongside women like yourself, incredible leaders. It makes such a difference.
Well, you're an incredible leader, and I really acknowledge you for starting Millionairess. I think it's fantastic. I just read, interesting, just the other day, I was reading an article that talked about how women, especially when it comes to money, they do so much better when they're doing it together in a group of like-minded people versus having to do it on their own or just with their spouse or partner. So by creating this community of women, you're really serving a lot of women. And I think you're going to get more and more women joining you because of that community and that like-mindedness that happens.
Thank you. And I think women really love connection. And, you know, I have a belief, and I would expect that, you know, you do too, that there is enough for everyone. Like I said, it's not competition, it's rising together. And you say it so beautifully in your book. So let's just talk about money a little bit, because, you know, so many people are a little bit weird about money. I have a great relationship with money. I think when I was a very young girl, I think I was not too dissimilar age to you, around about 9 or 10. I wanted to be a millionaire, and I didn't even know what a millionaire was, but I wanted freedom so bad. I left home at 16 and left school at 16, and I understand exactly what you said when you want freedom. And yet money, people are just crazy about money. But I've heard you say, and from experience of teaching entrepreneurs myself, money is the number one argument between couples. And the only time that a lot of people talk about money is when there is a problem. You know, what would you say is the first step that women can take to overcome this issue? Because it's massive.
It is massive. And like you, Amanda, when I was growing up, and I didn't know why I was doing this, but I was, of the 3 girls, I was the only one in high school that had a job because I wanted my own money. So when I went to college, I figured out how to get free tuition. I had a job throughout college so that I didn't depend upon mom and dad for my money. And for me, it was the same as you. It's freedom. It's freedom. And when you're dependent, if I was dependent on mom and dad, I got to follow their rules. Well, if I'm not dependent on them, I don't have to follow anybody's rules. I follow my own rules. And so for me, I wanted that financial freedom because I did not want to be dependent on anybody. And money is a very psychotic subject. Yes. Very, very psychotic. And then, you know, the saying, he who has the gold makes the rules. Well, he or she who has the money makes the rules. And so I see a lot of women today. I never, ever want to ever have to justify why I want to buy something. I don't want to ever have to ask permission if I want to buy something. And that comes with, you got to put in the time and you got to put in the effort, but the rewards are great. I see too many couples, too many women in bad relationships because they don't think they can make it on their own financially, in jobs they hate, because they need that paycheck. And so if a woman to me says, oh, money's not that important, I said, well, then quit your job. You know, if it's not so important, leave your horrible marriage. But money has the power to either enslave you. Yeah. And I see a lot of women who are enslaved either by spouses, by family members, but it also has the power to set you free. And I see women, when they take charge of their money and they're investing and they're seeing that cash flow coming in, oh my goodness, self-esteem goes through the roof. Their whole attitude is different. Their confidence soars. It's a beautiful thing. And I think it's back to your point of, you know, there's this fear of making a mistake, this fear of having your partner or friends, you know, question you. Oh my God. All my life, I've had people say, what are you doing? How come you're doing that? What do you mean you're quitting your job? What do you mean you're starting a business? What do you mean you're spending money on this apartment building? Are you all the time? So if you want to be comfortable, right? If you want to be comfortable, if you want to be safe and secure, then this is not the world for you. But if you want the freedom to live the life you want, the way you want it, on your terms, without people telling you what to do every single day, then you just got to get started. You got to get started. And I would start, number one, I would start learning the language of money. Just start learning there. It's actually the reason we created the cash flow game is for 2 reasons, because you said, how do you start the conversation? You learn the language of money, but more importantly, you're playing this game about money and investing, and it starts the conversation. And you can even go online today and play it for free. If you go to richdad.com, you can play it for free. You don't even have to buy it. But you've got to start learning the language of money And for me, the best way I learned is I put a little money down. So if you want to learn about the stock market, buy a few shares of stock, and because as soon as you part with that money, I guarantee you, your interest is going to go up. Guarantee you.
Oh, I absolutely love what you're sharing here. And I say, I couldn't agree more. I say to women, get some money in your purse. You don't have to spend it. But when you open your purse and you've got $500 or $1,000, you just feel good. You have that choice mentally and emotionally that if you wanted to spend it, you don't have to rely on other people, become dependent on other people. And, like you said, part with your money. And I remember when we bought our first apartment up the road, passing that check over, you go, this is it, I'm in now. And I always say, and I love your thoughts on this, I say to women, your best investment is into your mind. If you can invest into your personal development, your empowerment, then the journey becomes easier, because being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster. But, invest in your own mind. I've had 14 different businesses and I'm still standing.
But that's very true. I mean, I would not be where I am today if not for personal development. Both Robert and I are huge advocates. We work a lot on ourselves. Yeah. I mean, every morning I have a morning ritual. Every morning, most mornings, I wake up, get my coffee. That's always first, coffee. But then I read from one of my spiritual books, one of my personal development books. I have a stack of like 5 that I circulate through all the time, always looking for new books. Then I'll read something and you watch your mind. You gotta really be aware. And this really applies to money as well. When you're dealing with money and you have if you can catch those like little negative thoughts you might have, or little angst when maybe your spouse says, well, what did you spend that money on? And where did that go? And that angst, and you kind of pay attention to that. But I'll do some reading and then I'll journal on whatever my thought is at the time. I'll just write whatever it is. And then sometimes I will do a little meditation. But that time for me is crucial. I also have a mentor who mentors me on my personal development. And when my mind starts to go crazy and when I feel stuck or I'm not moving forward. And so she works with me to make those breakthroughs personally in my mind and in my spirit. The spirit is the strongest thing you've got. And if you can keep that spirit strong, then you've got a huge advantage over other people, huge advantage.
Yeah, and I love what Jim Rohn says, work harder on yourself than anything else. And I think that was when I was in my 30s, that was another turning point of my life, when I started to invest in my mindset. My whole life changed, especially on the entrepreneur journey. And, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better, things like that, all the sayings, of course, but it's so true. And people just think that there's only one side to this, and they often believe the other side is woo-woo. But, I say you've got to be mentally strong, emotionally strong, spiritually strong, physically strong to become financially strong.
Well,
because it's an emotional game.
I'll tell you one thing I'm doing right now is I had Eckhart Tolle wrote a wonderful book called The Power of Now, and he wrote a second book called A New Earth. And one day I just had this thought. I'm like, I'd like to do an Eckhart Tolle retreat. And so this was about 4 months ago, and I go online, and sure enough, the next retreat is at a hotel right down the street from me. And so I'm like, I'm going to go sign up for it. And they say, I'm sorry, wait list, we're sold out. You've got a wait list. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm meant to be there, I'll be there. And if not. So 5 days ago, I got an email and said, because of COVID-19, we of course can't do this event at the hotel. So everybody that signed up and who was on the waiting list, we're going to do a live seminar on Saturday all day. We'll do teachings, we'll do meditation, we'll do Q&A. So again, I'm always looking for how to get this out of my way and to tap more into what I call that universal energy, because that's where a lot of the magic happens. That's where a lot of the answers come from.
Yeah. You're sharing pure gold today. It's really fabulous. Thank you.
You're asking great questions. It's a good conversation. I like when it's just a conversation back and forth. I
just love it.
We're very aligned on our mission and our message. no doubt.
So many layers I could go into here, but let's change pathway. I remember, Robert talked about doodads right back in the day, spending your money on doodads, because many women go, I don't have enough money for that. I haven't got enough. I'm running out of money before the month runs out. Can you share with us, about doodads, what you think about that, and how if you stop spending your money on doodads, you could really change your financial future?
Yeah, yes. I got a lot of stories on that, but one story is when Robert and I were starting out, we moved from Portland to Phoenix. And so what happened is we were buying property up in Portland, Oregon. This is when I started in 1989. And then in 1991, that Portland market took off. It was exploding. And the Phoenix market, where we were looking to live because we had friends there and we knew the market wasn't very strong, that market was crashing. So we sold everything in Portland, moved it to Phoenix. And at that point we were financially free. And so at that point, we weren't financially free because we had millions of dollars. We were financially free because we had $10,000 a month coming in every month from our real estate investments, but we only had $3,000 in living expenses. So at that point we were financially free. Well, our friends who were not financially free were building the mega mansions, and they had all the sports cars, and they had the fancy vacations. And we had a really nice small house in a nice little resort, nothing real fancy, not the big house, not the McMansion, but we were taking the money that we were making in our business and kept investing it in property and then other investments as well, but primarily real estate. So we kept to that formula. And that's the formula we still use today. Yes, we do have the bigger house and we do have the sports cars, but here's the difference. Here's the difference. You talk about doodads, right? Doodads. So it's the cash flow from our investments that pay for our doodads. We don't pay for the doodads. It's our tenants who are paying the rent, who are paying for the properties. It's the cash flow from our investments that are buying our doodads. So that money isn't coming out of our pocket, it's coming from the investments. So we always have a rule that if we want a big doodad, that first we must find the investment that's going to deliver the cash flow that will pay for the doodad. So that's always been our formula, and that's our formula today.
Beautiful. And it can start right now by just, the takeaway lattes and the coffees and the lunches, that can add up to $30, $40, $50 a day. It starts something small. It's the habit, isn't it? Of just getting into the habit, training your mind to think differently.
Yes, it is exactly a habit. And one of the habits we had, and I know you know of this habit, one of the habits we had early on when we had more money going out than was going in, because we were just building our business. Robert and I decided we're going to have a rule. And the rule was, with every dollar bill that came into our household, didn't matter where it came from, every single dollar bill that came into our household, we took 30% off the top before paying any bills, before doing anything. And 10% went into an investment account, 10% went into a savings account for emergencies, and 10% went into a charity or tithing account.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing, and it wasn't the amount, it wasn't that it was 30%, it was the habit of doing it every single time. Now, our bookkeeper, Betty, didn't like that so much.
Betty?
Oh my God. Betty the bookkeeper. Oh my goodness.
Is that a real name?
That was her name. And she looked like Betty the bookkeeper. She looked like you would imagine. But she would go crazy with us because she's like, you don't have enough money to pay your bills. How can you take 30% off the top and give it to yourself? And we're like, because that's our financial future. If we don't do that, it'll just get spent. So it doesn't have to be 30%, but it needs to be a little bit of a stretch. It's got to be something that's got to stretch you just a little bit, because when we took 30% off the top, guess what? We had to get smarter on how to make more money. If it was very easy, then we'd get lazy with our mind, and then we don't get creative and we don't make all that magic happen.
We love to teach women to pay themselves first. And, you know, a lot of women say, well, I haven't even got enough for the bills. And I say, well, you'll work it out. Pay yourself first, exactly like what you just said, 20 to 30%. And then find a way to pay the rest of the bills. You'll figure out different ways. You'll stop spending your money on doodads and things like that. Is that sort of what you're saying to do as well? And just, you know, and we also talk about having a cushion, a financial cushion of, you know, 3 to 6 months in case something happens like it just has now, so that you don't go into that emotional and mental turmoil. What do you think about that?
Yeah, a lot of people, unfortunately, this was a huge wake-up call for them. They thought they had their safe, secure job, which now they don't. They thought they had enough money saved, now which they don't. Yes, and that's why we had 10% into a savings account. That was for the emergencies. That was for the downturns. Yeah. I love cushions. I love financial cushions. Every single property, since that little 2-bedroom, 1-bath, every single property, I had a reserve cushion with every single property. Because you never know when a roof's going to leak or a heater's going to blow up or what's going to happen. Yep. So I always had a reserve account. And personally, we always had a reserve account. We always had a cushion in case of an emergency. And there's always emergencies. But the difference is most people say, as I said earlier, when I have the money, then I'll invest. But they don't do the habit. They don't have the habit of putting that money aside. They don't have the habit of, let's go find it first. I always say, if you're looking at real estate, go find the property first. Yep. Even if you don't have money, go find it first and look at it and see it and imagine yourself owning it and running it. Imagine the cash flow coming in, and then you'll get creative on how to do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like in school, they give you the theory and you're like, it doesn't really make any sense. So until you're actually out there looking, whether it's property, whether it's a business, whether it's paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever it is, go find the asset first and then figure out a way to do it. That's just what you did, right? With your first unit. That's exactly what you did. You found it first, and then you're going, oh my God, how are we going to do it? Let's figure it out.
We figured it out. I said to my husband, you can just work harder, darling. No, not true. Oh, we were both working and renovating. We did all these renovations and lived in them while we were together. You know, the whole thing that, you know, I don't even want to think about it. But, you know, we stretched ourselves. And I think it was people want to grow. And I say, if you want to grow, like you said, actually go and do something that'll make you grow in a heartbeat.
Yes. We talk a lot about this concept of be, do, have.
Yeah. Yes.
And people always focus on what I want to have. And we're like, well, why don't you focus on who do you want to be?
Yes.
Who do you want to be? And so they're like, well, what about the do? So so you've got to do something. Every time you do something, there's going to be a feedback. You're going to get feedback. Every time you do something, there's feedback, and you got to pay attention to the feedback. But every time you do something, especially when you stretch yourself, that leads to growth, and that changes your being. So the purpose of doing isn't to have. The purpose of doing is to change your being so that you can have, so that you can have a lot. But if you've got a small mindset and a poor mindset, you're never going to have what rich people have. Yeah. It really does start here. And doing is a huge piece of it. And not doing the same old thing and not doing something that's easy, but doing something that stretches you, that pushes you out of your comfort zone, that makes you go, ooh, a little, you know, butterflies in the stomach going, ooh, I don't know if I can do this. And if you're saying, I don't know if I can do this, then you need to go do it.
You know, even this conversation with yourself today, people are saying, oh my gosh, you know, you must be so nervous. I said, I'm just so grateful. You know, I want to push myself and sit here and do this Millionairess movement and create this magazine, because I have this message for women, and I say, the greatest gift of going on the entrepreneur journey is not what you get, but who we must become to create that life by design and the freedom that we all have a burning desire to have. And I said, that's why I keep pushing myself, even in these moments that can feel really uncomfortable. But it's so worth it, isn't it? When you go, well, nothing happened. I didn't get shot. I'm not hurt or anything. No, I think entrepreneurship is like the fast track to personal development. Yeah. Because every
single day, right? We're facing a problem. We're facing something we haven't faced before. I mean, right now with this whole COVID thing, we're facing something we've never faced before.
Yeah.
And how are we overcoming it? And what are we doing? I've seen people get so creative and so smart and so clever. It's really healthy. I do my best to get rid of all the negative noise that's out there, because there's just so much of it. And I have enough negativity and doubts in my own mind that I don't need outside stimulus of any sort like that. But I've seen people get very, very creative. But every day, okay, quick story, was interviewing this woman one day a few years ago. And I said, what are you thinking about? You know, what do you want in a job? What are you looking for? What's interesting to you? She goes, I just don't want a job with problems. And I'm like,
right.
I want a job with problems. I said, well, then why do we need you? If you can't solve problems, why do we need you? And that was the end of the conversation. But that is our purpose, I think, as human beings, is to keep solving problems. And it goes back to the thing on mistakes. You can't solve a problem with, and I forget who said this, but you can't solve a problem with the same mindset and the same information that caused the problem. So it's that taking that risk, being willing to make a mistake. In our company, we say we want them to make mistakes all day long, as long as they're just not making the same mistake over and over. But when a mistake is made, we get together and we're like, okay, what did we learn? What happened? Da 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 da. What worked? What was wrong with the system? How come that failed? Da da da. And and it's a real healthy, exciting, creative environment, because people are not afraid of making a mistake. They're not afraid to. They're not, CYAing themselves all day long. They're pushing themselves, and they know it's okay.
Yeah, and people are so weird about making mistakes. And I've heard you talk about this. And in our company, we say that, every time, don't come to me with a problem. You can come to me with the problem, but only if you have 3 solutions of how you're going to solve the problem. And it changes the thinking, instead of being stuck in a negative vibration, to think, okay, we've got a problem because this is life, this is business, but let's think about how we're going to solve it, because that makes you better at serving other people. Would you agree with something like that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So we have in our company, for example, with our cash flow game, since the good news is, since so many people are staying home all over the world, people are buying our game like crazy. And that's a good thing, because they're using the time financially educate themselves. I'm thrilled about that.
Congratulations. That is fantastic.
Thanks. The problem it created is we sold out of games about 3 months early.
Yes.
And so the team, okay, here's the problem. Boom, boom, boom. How can we solve it? So we got games back in. We did a fast track to get more games. We got more games in. They sold out. And so now we're like, okay, so now we have this gap, and how do we solve this? And so now and it's very creative. We're turning it into a really fun experience for our whole community. And we're going to be learning together. But they took something that for a lot of people would be, oh my God, we're out of games. It's a big problem. We're going to be and here's the issue. And now it's turned into, we're going to make this something great. And so you also have to, one of the key things I've learned too over many years when it comes to business is the most important thing to me is to trust the people I work with. That's number one. Because I've dealt with people who I haven't trusted, or I turned out that I should not have trusted. But when you get a team of people that you trust to take care of the mission, and that you trust that will do a fabulous job, then it makes my life as easy. I mean, I'm just kind of the catalyst and guiding things. They're the ones that are making things happen. And it's so fun. It's such a creative environment. I go in there now and it's like, oh, what do we got this year? And we're talking about the wins that we have. And and we have problems every day. And it's a bumpy road. Entrepreneurship is just a bumpy road. That's the way it is. I got very excited talking about this.
Yeah, so do I. I love it.
One thing I did, there was a study that was done, and I thought this was a brilliant study on who should be an entrepreneur and who should not be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And that wasn't why they did the study, but I interpreted it that way. And it was a study done of centenarians. These are people that lived over 100 years old, and they wanted to find out what the common denominators of these people were. And and there were three things that they found. And I think these three things apply to entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Number one is every one of them had a sense of purpose. Whether it was small or big, there was a purpose for them to get up every morning and to do whatever they're going to do. Number two, they were optimistic. I think an entrepreneur has got to be optimistic,
yes.
because we face so much stuff every day that if we get negative and start looking downward, we're never going to rise above to where we need to get to. So they were optimistic. The third thing, and I think this is the most important for an entrepreneur, was resiliency.
Yeah.
How well they came back from a setback. So when a big problem hit, did they get back up and figure out how they're going to solve it, or did it keep them down and it kind of just like wiped them out? So those were the three things: sense of purpose, optimistic, and resilient. And
I just love that. I heard you say that in a couple of different interviews, because I plan on living to at least 120, Kim. We've got a lot of work to do out here. So, I just want to ask you a question on that. You know, we talk about resilience. You know, I've had many failed businesses, and the only businesses that have been incredibly successful for me was when they were soul-filled businesses. Actually, you know, my purpose, my life purpose in what I'm doing now, which I absolutely love, empowering other people to live their dreams. How important do you believe it is to surround yourself? Even, you know, we've both been on this journey for, well, since we were kids, really, because you and I came from one of three girls too, and always wanted to have my own business. How important do you believe it is to continually surround yourself with mentors, but as Robert says, and you say it, real mentors who actually walk the talk ongoing, even though we are as teachers or educators? I still surround myself with mentors. Do you do the same thing? And what do you think about that subject?
I think mentors, if there's any shortcut at all to entrepreneurship, to investing, to learning something new, the best shortcut, if there is such a thing, is a mentor. So I have mentors. I've had mentors all my life. Today I have business mentors. So for example, we have a group called the Rich Dad Advisors. And these are our advisors, taxes, law, real estate, paper assets, social capitalists. These are our real advisors. And just recently, since we had this big change in our company, they all came to me and they said, we would like to be your board of advisors. And so we get together 4 times a year, and we just put everything on the table. Here's where we are at Rich Dad. I open everything up to them, and we just hash it out. What about this? What about this? What about this? And it's not comfortable, because they're also telling me what's not working and what I could be doing a whole lot better, what our team could be doing a whole lot better, but it's priceless. It's priceless. And these are bright people. So I have business advisor. I have an investor advisor. I have several investor advisors. I have a fitness mentor. I have a personal development mentor. I'm always looking for people, because I'm not smart in most of these areas. You know, I need people to work with me to make me better. So I think a mentor is crucial in so many areas, not just one mentor, but mentors to take you to where you want to go in all areas of your life.
That is priceless advice. And so many entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you've come across them, say, I'll figure it out myself. I'll just work it out. And when I can't do it, then I'll invest into a mentor. And I say, don't do that. Save yourself 20 years or 10 years. Please don't do that. Find the right mentor who has the result that you want, who walks the talk. He's not a fake teacher, as you guys say. How many mistakes have you made trying to figure it out yourself?
Well, that's a really good point, because yes, we talk about real teachers and fake teachers, and I only want to learn from people who are doing what it is I want to do. So my business mentors, my fitness mentors, they do the real thing. They're all out there doing this every single day. That's who I want to learn from. And the other point I wanted to make, you had just mentioned, when people say, I'm going to do it myself, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to tell you this. One thing, I get this question quite a bit, is how come women stay small business? How come they don't grow big businesses? And I think for a lot of women, what happens is when we start, we never have that purpose, number one, or a big enough goal.
Yeah.
It might be, we're going to start a business because we need a little money on the side. You know, I want to spend my own money, so I'm going to start a business. But then what happens is, and we have a book called the Cashflow Quadrant, and it talks about the employee, which is the E, the S, which is self-employed, small business, specialist. And to get from there to the B quadrant, which is big business, and then the I quadrant is investor. What I see happen to so many people, and especially women, is you get into that S quadrant, the specialist, the consultant, the store owner, the yoga instructor, and they do it on their own. And they always say, nobody can do it better. If you want it done right, do it by yourself. And you are only, if you want to stay small, no problem, then that's the quadrant for you. But just know you're never, ever, ever, I would never, ever have the business that we have today if it wasn't for the team of people around us. And that team changes over time. When we started, we didn't have a team. It was just me and Robert. Then we added somebody. Then we added, you know, financial people. And as the business grew, we need smarter and more sophisticated partners and more sophisticated advisors and team members. Yep. So the team's going to change all the time. But just know, starting out, it might just be you. But to really grow, if you really want to grow your business, grow your investments, you're going to need a team of people around you to support you. Guaranteed.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's, you know, sometimes we've just got to get out of our own way and believe in ourselves. And this is why I keep going back to personal development or empowerment. You know, that is where you get the growth. You really, you know, figure out, you know, you have the, I guess, find more courage, and you surround yourself with the right mentors, and you can really start to grow much faster and stop holding, you know, we've got to stop holding ourselves back as women. We need more leaders out there.
We do need more leaders out there. We definitely do. And, you know, again, I'm going to say, we all know when we hold ourselves back. We all know when we don't do what we should do. You know, somebody wants to lose weight. You know how to lose weight. You exercise and you eat healthier. But why don't you do it? So if there's something that you really want, I think, and then of course, I talk about this in my book, if there's something, you know, if you're going to take on this journey of financial independence and financial freedom, it's work. It's going to take work. It's going to take study. It's going to take, and I agree with you, Amanda. If you don't handle the personal development side, if you don't handle that little voice in your head that's telling you why you can't do something and why you're going to fail and all of this and why so-and-so was right and da-da-da-da, you've got to have the business sense as well as the personal development. So you need the financial education, the entrepreneurial education, but you also need the personal development education. That's crucial. Because if you don't have that, it's gonna be so difficult to move forward and to get out of your own way and you're gonna. I come all the time. I come up to a limit, and I hit it, and I'm like, okay. And sometimes I'm like, I think I've done enough. Yeah. I don't have to go any farther. And then the next problem happens, or the next thing occurs, and you find somebody's doing funny things with the business, and you got to also, things happen all the time. But if I wasn't in motion and doing things, as you say, nothing would happen. So
yeah, I get that. Sorry, go ahead, keep going. Sorry.
Say one of the keys to having that magic happen, those moments where you go, oh my God, look what just happened, is because you've got to be in motion, moving towards a goal. It's one of the reasons I do like having goals, is because it puts me in motion. And as long as I'm in motion, things will start happening around me and swirling around me. But if you're not moving, if you're not in motion, there's no energy, nothing's going to change.
That is just perfectly said there. You know, I call it the bird on the shoulder, you know, the toxic talk. And you just got to punch that bird in the beak some days, because, you know, it doesn't, you know, I'm in my 50s now, and I've had, you know, it doesn't stop, and I continually work on myself as you do. And it's my ritual of a morning. I work an hour on myself before I even look at an email or a computer. And I think it is so important to work on your spiritual health, your mental and your emotional health, especially in business, to keep us going. And, you know, the next question I would ask from that, and I've only got a couple more, I promise, 2 more questions, if that's okay. Community. who you surround yourself with, is that vitally important for you to you know, keep on your mission of what you want to achieve in this life?
It's crucial. I did make the decision many years ago to get the negative people out of my life, and not an easy thing to do, especially if the negative people are people that are close to you that you see on a regular basis. I ended several relationships. I purposely chose not to spend time with some people that are in my life. But I wanted to be around people who I supported, who they support me. We push each other to grow. One of the reasons Robert and I were so well together was because he would push me to go beyond where I thought I could go. He'd say, well, what about this? What if you do this? And so now I have people around me, very positive. I cannot be around negative people because there's I don't know if it's the vibration that just brings me down. I've got so much going on. I need to be around people, not that are just phony, ha ha ha, you know, life is great, but who are optimistic and positive about what we can accomplish. That's crucial to me. I have girlfriends, three women that travel with me. We do the Rich Woman events around the world. They're all entrepreneurs, investors. And when there's a problem or an issue, or sometimes we just get together on the phone like we did the other day, and it's like, let's just connect. And what are you doing? What are you working on? And we're encouraging each other to, you know, some people, their businesses have changed, and how can you do this? And how can you do that? And got another friend who's selling a big piece of property, and now she's had a bit of a bump. Can we talk about this? So we support each other in having their goals and their dreams come true. That is something that is like at the top of my list. The top of my list. I only want to be around people who are going to support me in my dreams, and I support them in their dreams, and we collaborate together, because synergy is so important.
Yeah.
Because that's where ideas come from, and that's where new ideas come from. So there's too many people who live with negative people and they're miserable. It's not fun, and it kills creativity. It kills your spirit. It takes a lot to keep moving forward, and to keep that spirit strong, and to keep that, you know, staying true to your values and staying true to your purpose. And that takes a lot of energy. And so I need a lot of positivity around me as much as possible.
And on that note, you know, it sounds like you've got your own little mastermind going on there. And, you know, for your mission that you are so clear on and is so important for the work that you're doing out there. Last question is, Kim, you know, the whole journey that you've taken from where you began to where you are now, what is it that you would really love to be remembered for?
Oh, this might sound kind of silly, but when we started the Rich Dad Company, which was back in '96 with the Cashflow game, because we wanted to bring financial education to the world. When this last year in August, when we reorganized our company, and we're like, well, what do we want to do? And I'm like, I just want to focus on the Cashflow game. We want to reconnect. We have all these cash flow clubs all over the world, people just spontaneously getting together on a regular basis, playing the game, teaching one another, learning from one another. I would just love to see cash flow clubs all over the world, as many as possible. Love to see a lot of women leading these cash flow clubs. That to me would make my heart sing. It makes my heart sing today. I just want to see it on massive, massive levels throughout the world. Because if we can get this game out there where it's fun, people are learning, people are teaching one another, and people are elevating their financial well-being, then I think truly the world would be in a much better place. So that would be it for me. It hasn't changed after all these years.
I think the world is already a better place because of the work you do, along with Robert. You know, you guys have just, you know, I know that you know the impact you have, but it's still nice to hear the stories. I've got friends around the corner who have just started reading your book the other day, this book, and already they're saying, right, we're going to save $100,000 this year. We're going to buy our first investment. And it's just like the work still goes on. And I want to say thank you for being such an integral part of the Millionairess movement. I so appreciate your time. I know how valuable it is, but I've just so enjoyed this time with you, and I just want to say thank you from my heart. It really does mean a lot to our readers and the women hearing this conversation today.
Oh, well, thank you, Amanda. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for having me be a part of the Millionairess. I so applaud the work that you're doing. Keep going, keep elevating those women, keep encouraging them, keep educating them. Because as I said, the more women we have out there as role models and leaders, definitely the better this world will be. I know that down to my soul.
Thank you so much. And hopefully next time you're in Australia, we might catch up for a cup of tea.
Wonderful. That'd be wonderful. I'd love that, Amanda.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you. Have a wonderful day in Australia.
You have a wonderful evening as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye for now.